guys, welcome to another movie review. A couple weeks ago I posted a poll on Instagram. It's kind of something that I'm starting. I'm saying a couple weeks ago, but it was actually like yesterday, but I'm recording these in advance, so hopefully timelines line up as I'm posting these videos. But I asked for your guys' opinions between War with Jason Statham or Stealth with Jamie Foxx, and you guys all voted on Stealth. So today's review is going to be a Stealth. I've seen this movie once, but not in one sitting. I rented it a couple years after it came out, and the DVD that I rented skipped. They didn't have a second copy of it, so I wound up getting something else, but I didn't see like the last half of the movie. So maybe a year, or even like 6 months maybe it wasn't that long, but I found my own copy of it and picked it up, and I think I watched the last half of it without watching the first half, so I watched it kind of like in two parts. So I really don't remember a whole lot. There's only one element that I remember, but I'll save that for the spoiler part when I get to it. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to watching this, and yeah, hopefully it doesn't stink, and yeah, I'll give my point. I'll put on the movie, and I'll come back and tell you what I thought of it. Okay. Really? You're gonna... Okay. No, you're gonna come back to my lap, aren't you? Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, I guess I'm doing the review with the cat in my lap. Okay, so the movie just ended, and I can see why I don't remember a whole lot of this movie. There's not a lot to remember in this movie, aside from the one thing that I'll get into in the spoilers. This was boring. This was an incredibly boring movie. A movie about stealth planes and like fighter jets and that kind of thing, and like it's supposed to be like a fast-paced action, adrenaline-filled movie, and it's all very slow moving. Even the action scenes themselves move very slowly, and they just feel like they're not even like, it's not like they're in slow-mo. It's just they don't have that energy being portrayed on screen. I think another thing that doesn't help this film is the main leads are incredibly one-note. Jessica Biel is the female of the group. That's her personality, and she's there to create sexual tension for Josh Lucas's character. Oh, and to have a mandatory bikini scene, because that's what we do, apparently. Josh Lucas's character, he's the cocky, arrogant pilot, and Jamie Foxx is horny, I guess. That's really all his character was, is that every beautiful woman comes his way, he's got to hit on them, and then they talk about how that's what he does, is he meets a woman, he has sex with her, and then that's it. So yeah, the characters are completely one note, so to really have any care for them, yeah, there isn't any. I just realized again that I forgot to detail what the plot of this film actually is, or lack thereof. The main premise of this film is the government has created 3 new stealth jets, and they've got these 3 new pilots that have been handpicked or whatever to run these dangerous missions or whatever. And at the beginning of the film, they learn that they have a 4th member joining their team, and it's actually this unmanned AI pilot that they call Eddie. I forget what, it was like EDI, and I forget what EDI stood for, but they call him Eddie, and he malfunctions in the field, and now they have to stop him because he has kind of become homicidal. There's more to the plot, but I'll get into that into the spoiler stuff. I'm just trying to do the basics here. So yeah, the characters are one note. The action is not very fun. And the movie just feels very long. Like, it's a 2-hour movie, and I feel that, like, half an hour of this could have been scrapped. Maybe 20 minutes, to try and make it like an hour and 40 minutes or something like that. But no, it's just, I paused it at about 55 minutes to go to the bathroom, and I was surprised that it was at 55 minutes, only at 55 minutes. And then I had to get up and do something else, and I paused it again, and I was only at like an hour and 30 minutes, and it felt like 45 minutes had been and gone. And then I checked the time again, and it had only been like 15 minutes from the hour and a half, and there was only 15 minutes left, and it felt like there was still a lot that needed to be wrapped up, and then the movie just kind of ends. So yeah, I would not recommend Stealth, and in terms of keeping or getting rid of the DVD, I'm definitely getting rid of the DVD. It just, yeah, I don't see myself putting this back on anytime soon, or ever. So, that all being said, I actually, because of my Jumper review, I looked back on it and realized that I actually forgot to talk about a couple things. So this time I took notes, so I don't forget anything. So, I'll try and edit some of the reading of, like I'll try and edit some of this down, but, so here's my thoughts. One of the pilot's mottos is "Don't think, drink," and I'm believing that is the motto for writing the script. Actually, they didn't really think about anything. They just kind of threw some stuff together. In fact, one of the things I do have to commend about this film is that the explosions look really nice. This is a movie that would make Michael Bay happy. This is from Rob Cohen, who, if you don't know, also directed The Fast and the Furious and XXX. He's done a couple other things recently, but his big three were XXX, Fast and Furious, and Stealth. I think those are the big three that he's been really known for. There's a scene in XXX where they blow up a barn, and it was this big spectacle scene, big explosion. I remember watching the bonus features for that, and they said that they had like one take for that. It was, if they didn't get that shot, it was it. And I feel like after that shot, Rob Cohen went, "Explosions are fun," and made this movie and just kind of tried to thinly plot out a course to have a bunch of explosions. The next point that I have written down here is the dialogue between Josh Lucas and Jessica Biel is dreadful. They have some of the worst lines between each other to signal their sexual tension or whatever. Their relationship felt very forced and very unbelievable. Like, it just, yeah, that you could just tell the moment that they interact with each other on screen the first time, it's like there's supposed to be some sort of like history or tension between them, romantic, whatever, and it kind of leads into what happens at the end, but it doesn't pay off really. Also, watching this, there's a lot of scenes at the beginning where they're on the aircraft carrier, and you're seeing like jets landing and taking off, and then like setting everything up and all that. And I suddenly realized that Rob Cohen just does extreme versions of better films. So Fast and Furious is the extreme version of Point Break somehow, because Point Break is pretty extreme in of itself, if I'm remembering right. XXX is just the extreme James Bond, and this is just extreme Top Gun. That's all this is. Well, the beginning of it, the rest of the movie kind of like muddles around, but yeah, I've come to determine that Rob Cohen just takes other movies, better movies, and tries to make them more extreme or edgy or awesome. They're not. As much as I enjoy the first Fast and Furious movie, and even to an extent the first XXX movie, they're not extreme or edgy. They're just products of the time, really. The CGI in this is also very dated. Like, incredibly dated. It looks incredibly fake. There's actually a line, there's a line in this that I'm going to bring up another time, but Josh Lucas's character says to his commanding officer that wars are not a video game. Wars might not be a video game, but the CGI in this is very much PS2. Actually, at times I felt like I was watching a video game cutscene and not an actual feature-length movie. Okay, so going along with that war is not a video game comment, Josh Lucas's character, he's very cocky, he's very arrogant, and he doesn't feel that having an unmanned plane is very safe. And he says something along the lines of, war is not a video game, and wars are fought, or something about like actions are weighed by the consequences of those actions, and you don't make those determinations unless you know what the consequences are, and a robot can't completely fathom what the full consequences are and the moral consequences of the actions that it's going to do. And it's an interesting line, and it does feed well into like the first half of the movie, concept of like determining whether or not to use machine operated planes versus human operated planes. But it kind of loses its weight when it's coming from the character that disobeyed orders, used the "sorry, you're breaking up on me" technique on his comm system, and then blew up a building after being told not to do it, and then nearly blacking out from the velocity and almost crashing his plane himself. So I guess the consequences of your actions are only good if they're done by an arrogant pilot, I think? I don't know. That whole thing seemed kind of hypocritical to me, and there's no real, like, overarching character to him to, like, learn that mistake or anything, aside from the fact that, like, when the plane disregards an order, it tells him straight up that, well, you did it. So machines will think logically, but they'll also take human reasoning or human excuses into effect, I guess. There's also this, like, maybe 10 or 15 minute segment where the crew goes to Thailand. I think it was to further flesh out their characters, but it just hammered in the fact of, like, the stereotypes that I talked about at the beginning of the review. Honestly, I just think that the Thailand scenes were just excuse for vacation. Like, nothing character building actually happens in these scenes. I think it was just an excuse to go to Thailand and have maybe a mini vacation, but they justified it by rolling the cameras and shooting a couple of scenes to pad the movie out. Okay, so the scene that I do remember from this movie, like the only scene, aside from the fact that I remember that the movie ends on like a really lame joke and then just cuts, the scene that I do remember is Jamie Foxx's character dies. But the plane decides that it selects another target and goes after it, and our three heroes go follow it to try and stop it, and they even try reasoning with it. They try reasoning with a machine. Let that sink in. But then they decide to take the initiative to shoot it down, and Jamie Foxx tries to shoot it, misses, and then gets blinded by the explosion and then crashes into a canyon side and blows up. And debris from his plane strikes Jessica Biel's plane, so she has to divert her course and head back to base before she crashes. And before she can do that, her plane starts to malfunction and she has to eject. And there's this incredibly drawn out scene of her like ejecting and falling and like giving this like play-by-play described video scenario of what's going on. Now I get it that like she's communicating with her with the command station and stuff, and like giving them updates and like making sure that she's alive. But when she actually does land, she stops talking completely. So I don't know. But it just the whole scene feels very drawn out to try and kind of like add tension to the scene and like, is she gonna make it? Is she not gonna make it? But when your character has the personality of a wet sponge, it really just slows the movie down. I feel like they could have cut maybe 3 minutes out of that scene and it would have pretty much the same effect. Just me saying. So around this point, we suddenly switch gears and it goes from being stop the malfunctioning artificial intelligence stealth fighter pilot or fighter plane from blowing up anybody it sees as evil, and it goes into a conspiracy military thing where the commanding military officer isn't exactly playing by the rules, and he's allowed the machine to go out even though it wasn't fully tested, and it was struck by lightning and it could have shortened it out, but he's given it the okay, and there's this like whole military conspiracy, and that he becomes the villain of the movie. You think that like based on like the premise of the film and how the trailers played it out, it was the fighter pilot, that the fighter plane that was going to be the villain. The robot fighter plane was going to be the villain of the movie. But no, it's actually this military guy that's pulling all the strings or whatever. And he actually has like a guy in like the government that he contacts, and he tells them to give the locations of the fighter plane to the Russians so the Russians can shoot it down, so the states can wash their hands of this of this whole thing, and not have a hand in it, and they're actually helping the Russians and trying to be more allied with the Russians, and so the Russians come and attack Josh Lucas and the fighter plane, or the Eddie, sorry, so Lucas and Eddie have to team up to take out the Russians, and there's actually a legitimate scene. It was like they were trying to do like a Matrix style thing with fighter pilots, but the one fighter pilot, I can't remember if it's Lucas or if it's the robot, does an actual slow-mo backflip over top of one of the Russian fighter jets, and then flips around and then shoots the thing down. Like, it was Matrix style fighting, but with fighter planes. It was one of the craziest and silliest things I've seen. And there's actually a couple other silly things that happened in this movie. But, can I help you? My dog would like to be in the video, apparently. So yeah, after they work together, Eddie and Lucas are told to go to Alaska so the machine can get reprogrammed and Lucas can kind of have like a breather, or like get debriefed or whatever. And when they're flying to Alaska, Lucas does this tactic, or this thing where I don't even know how this works. This is where the movie officially jumps the shark. He drops a bomb into the ocean. The bomb blows up. It sprays water into the air. Eddie the robot flies through the water, and suddenly he's reprogrammed and also now feels remorse for the bad things that he does. He feels bad for blowing up the one area and causing the nuclear fallout to wash over this little village, and he feels bad for killing Jamie Foxx's character. He feels remorse because he got splashed with water. That's the only explanation that I can come up with. That's the only series of events that happens that would explain this sudden robot learning how to feel remorse, is that he got sprayed with water. And to stretch things out even more in this film, we've gone from having it just being a malfunctioning fighter pilot or fighter jet to a government conspiracy, military conspiracy, with a subplot of Jessica Biel has landed behind enemy lines and now they have to go and save her. This has become a very complex plot for what seemingly just seemed like a simple actioner that could have been an hour and a half long. And in fact, Josh Lucas, when he lands in Alaska, the people at the Alaskan base have been given orders to assassinate him by like injecting him with some sort of chemical serum of some sort. And he fights the guy off, kills the guy, and then he takes the fighter plane to go save Jessica Biel. He calls up the lieutenant on the aircraft carrier and informs him of what his commanding officer has done. The lieutenant goes to arrest the commanding officer, and this is pretty much how it goes. I'm here to arrest you. Security guy, come in and arrest him. And the commanding officer goes, can I have a moment alone? And the guy goes, yeah, okay. What? And obviously commanding officer, shoots himself. He'd rather would die than be court-martialed and, have this against his record or whatever. And it's like, why would you let him have a minute to himself when he's being arrested? Come on. I've even written down here, why is this so long? I think that was that hour and 45-minute mark when I suddenly realized that, the movie should be ending, and it was still going. So my last two comments here are, at the end, there's a funeral for Jamie Foxx, which almost felt like a reminder that Jamie Foxx was in the movie, because, an hour of the movie has passed, but it feels like an eternity, so it's kind of this, oh yeah, remember, Jamie Foxx was in this, and he died, and now you need to feel sad because a main character died. And we follow up this really sad funeral scene with a very lame joke regarding the romantic tension between George Lucas and Jessica Biel, and then the movie ends. Just there. It ends. She makes a quip about, why don't you just say you love me or something like that, and then they kind of have a smirk, and then it just ends. It's the most abrupt ending ever. And then, to top it all off, the credits roll. I let them play because that's what I do now, is I let the credits play, and there's actually an end credit scene where it shows the Um, oh yeah, I guess I need to mention this too. The robot sacrifices itself, and the music builds up. So you're actually supposed to feel bad for the fact that the robot sacrifices itself so Josh Lucas and Jessica Biel can escape. And I actually did feel kind of bad because he had the most personality out of all of our main characters. But it shows the wreckage of the fighter pilot, or of Eddie, and his little sensor thing lights up, like indicating that they were going to do a sequel or something. And I'm guessing that this movie did not make its box office back because, yeah, there's no sequel to this, and I hope that there never is. But those are my very disjointed thoughts on Stealth. I'm still working, like, this is my third review in this format. I'm still working on it, so I apologize for any choppiness. I'll try and edit some of the, like, really choppy stuff out. But yeah, that's my take on Stealth. I do not recommend watching it. This is not a movie that you need to go out and watch. This is not a movie that I would not recommend this movie. But if you've seen this movie, let me know in the comments below what your take on it is. And don't forget to subscribe if you yourself are jonesing for film. Thanks for watching.